الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وإمام المتقين ورحمة الله العالمين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. من التعشق والعبادة كلها الطيبات صلاة التوفيق والتوفيق والصلاة على أحمد رب العالمين. ونشهد سبيل وسلم إن شاء الله kita demikian continue but also for Allah's barakah. Alhamdulillah, tonight we have one of our brothers from America, Sheikh Al-Karim, who came all the way also with Habib Allah Habib. Sheikh Al-Karim used to, he's one of the effective lecturers and scholars in the US and other places, Alhamdulillah. So I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to hear from him tonight and for him to share with us on inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. And because we have another practice, so I will give the way to him first and give the story so that we can accept the other program as well, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Allahumma salli wa sallim على سيدنا محمد نورك الساري ومددك الجاري واجمعنا به في كل أطوارنا وعلى آله وصحبه يا نور وعلينا معهم وفيهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, it's an honor and a privilege that we don't deserve to be speaking in the Majlis of Sheikh Afeefuddin, Hafidhahullah wa nafa'ana wa muslimin bihi. But as they say, obeying commands take precedence at times over showing courtesy and etiquette. So with his request and the request of our Mashaykh and our Habayat to come and benefit from this gathering with you, and we came seeking benefit, seeking his gaze and your gaze. Inshallah, we'll share a few words with you briefly prior to your continuing your lesson. So if we were just to come, as we learned from our shuyukh, in order to see Sheikh Afeefuddin and see the habaib that are present, that would be enough. And this gaze, this ru'ya, there's a meaning of the benefit that flows through the chains of transmission, reaching the one who gazes upon one of the links of those chains. And that meaning is attested to by a hadith that is narrated by Bukhari and Muslim and others. This is the riwayah of Muslim that the Prophet ﷺ said, يَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٌ يَغْزُو فِيهَانٌ مِّنَ النَّاسِ فَيُقَالُ فِيكُمْ Man ra'a Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muslim narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, a time will come when a group will go and make a ghazw. They'll go striving in the way of Allah, in jihad. And it will be said, is there anyone among you, and our sheikhs, Habib Umar describes us specifically, that their victory is delayed. So when the victory is delayed, what do? They ask, is there anyone among you who saw Allah's Messenger? And it will be said, yes. And then they will be granted victory. And then Muslim goes on, and then a time comes when a group will go on a ghazw, and it will be said, هَلْ فِيكُمْ مَنْ رَأَى مَنْ صَحِبَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Is there anyone among you who saw someone Not who saw Allah's messenger, who saw the one who saw Allah's messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and it will be said yes, and then they will be granted victory. And then he went on, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and then a time will come, another group will make ghazw, and as we were taught by our Sheikh, their victory will be delayed. So then they'll say, هَلْ فِيكُمْ مَنْ رَأَى مَنْ صَحِبَ Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Is there anyone who saw the one who kept the company of the one who kept the company? Not the one who saw Allah's messenger or saw the one who saw him, but saw the one who saw the one who saw him. Salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. And it will be said yes, and their victory will be granted. So that shows us the secret and the barakah and the aid and the nusrah that comes through gazing upon those who gazed upon Allah's messenger. So when we come in this majlis, in a house from Allah's houses, the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, visiting those who we love for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, surrounded by angels praying for us, in addition to that, the benefit is just in seeing those who saw those. So if we look at Sheikh Afeefuddin Al-Jailani, we're seeing someone who saw Al-Sheikh Al-Jailani, who saw someone up to his grandfather Al-Hasan, who saw up to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So just as the tabi'un sought victory through the likes of that ru'ya, and the tabi'un and those who follow them, through the likes of this gaze and through the likes of these men, we ask Allah that He grant us openings, and that He grant all of you openings in this knowledge, and that He grant openings for the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this land, in my land, and in Tareem, and in the whole world, in this time in which we need victory. And then Imam al-Shafi'i taught us, in the translation of the meaning of his saying is, knowledge between the people of virtue is a bond of kinship. Al-ilmu bayna ahlul fadli rahim muttasil, or kama qala rahimahullah. And there's a bond of kinship here, a strong bond of kinship between Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al-Jailani and the Sada Al-Alawiyin. First of all, there's the bond of kinship of them being cousins. And then later, there's a spiritual bond of kinship that occurred generations later. And that was that one of the students of the Sheikh Abdul Qadir, his name was Al-Ghawth Shu'aib Abu Madian Al-Maghribi. And the origin of the spiritual system of the Sa'ad al-Alawiyin, of the Habaib of Hadramaut, in one of their chains of transmission was the spiritual path of Sheikh Abu Madian. And the founder of the spiritual path of Al-Alawi, his name was Al-Faqih al-Muqaddam Muhammad bin Ali Ba'alawi. And he never met physically a Sheikh Abu Madian. They never met, however they lived in the same time. And there was a spiritual connection. So close to the time of the death of the Sheikh Abu Madian, he authorized a student of his name was Abdurrahman al-Maq'ad. Abdurrahman al-Maq'ad. And he was making Hajj in that year. And he said that we have companions in Hadramaut. And you take this khirqa. He gave him his cloak. And he said that when you sense that you're going to die, he informed him that Abdurrahman al-Maq'ad, he didn't make it to Hadramaut. When you sense that you're going to die, authorize someone to take this cloak to Al-Faqih al-Muqaddam, Muhammad bin Ali Ba'alawi. And you'll find him in the city of Tareem and Hadramaut, studying with a sheikh named Al-Faqih ba Marwan, with his sword on his lap. So seek him to leave the halaqah and dress him in this cloak for me. So Abdurrahman al-Maq'ad, he sure enough, he made Hajj, and since that he was dying, and he authorized a student of his named Abdullah bin Saleh to continue, and told him the description that Abu Madian had gave him, and he reached Tareem and sought permission of the majlis of the Faqih ba Marwan, and asked for the Faqih al-Muqaddam, and again took his permission and draped him in that cloak. And that was an authorization, the chain of which connects to the grandfather of Sheikh Afeefuddin Abdul Qadir Al-Jailani through Abu Madian. And often we find in the books of Imam al-Haddad, he'll mention it when he'll talk about Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al-Jailani, he'll say Sayyidi. Sayyidi Al-Sheikh Al-Jailani. And when they say Sayyidi like that, that's a more specific attribution indicating, again, a closer connection. So alhamdulillah for these connections and these chains that are the means, O Ummah Muhammad, O believers from the Ummah Muhammad, men and women, to that which will give us life, to that which will revive our iman and preserve the message that the Prophet ﷺ promised would be preserved until the day of rising, until the Quran is raised. Those hearts will remain through these chains of transmission that are a means of giving life, and for you and I to realize the purpose for which we were created, and that is to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To renew that covenant that was taken from you and I when we were in the realm of souls. And that is what the shuyukh do, the authorization for which they took from the Prophet ﷺ. Allah took a covenant from you and I, the Prophet ﷺ renewed that covenant as all the prophets did in general with the Shahadatan. And then in specific, he would take bay'ah and covenants from specific companions for specific works. One of the companions agreed, he made a pact with Rasulullah never to ask anyone for anything. He was so true to his word that if he dropped his crop that he would switch his animal with, if he dropped it on his camel for instance, he would get off his camel and pick it up and get back on because he had made a covenant. He had renewed this covenant on the hand of Allah's messenger in specific for specific qualities. And that's one of the meanings of these chains of transmission. When we connect to these chains, that covenant that was taken from you and I, when we were in the realm of spirits, Allah describes it in Surah 7, verse 172, when He said, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى شَهِدْنَا. The translation of the meaning of this verse is, and when your Lord took from the children of Adam, first the children of Adam were drawn from the loins of Adam, and then from their loins, min buhurihim, from their loins, their offspring were drawn. So all of us were drawn forth from the loins of our ancestry and into the children of Adam and then Adam at one plane, when we were still in the realm of spirits. And what? And He had them testify to themselves, and Allah said to us what? Alastu bi rabbikum. Am I not your Lord? And they call that the day of Alastu bi rabbikum. That is the day of Am I not your Lord? When you and I are still in the realm of the souls, prior to even our bodies being formed in our mother's wombs, much less our souls being placed in the bodies. In the realm of souls, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a covenant from us. He had us testify to His Lordship and testify to His oneness. And Imam al-Haddad, rahimahullah, he said that this covenant, this acknowledgement of the Lordship and this acknowledgement of Tawheed, that is the fitrah. That is the primordial nature of the human being upon which he or she was born. So you and I were born on that primordial nature. Our soul knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only did our soul know Allah, our soul heard Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and responded. And that was such a powerful experience that all of the souls were blown out of their mind. And they couldn't speak. Imagine we heard Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we couldn't speak. And who was the first to respond? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's narrated by Muhammad al-Baqir. Why does he have to qaddam over the Anbiya? Why does he take precedence over the Anbiya? One of the meanings of that, the manifestations of that, was Rasulullah was the first one to respond. So we heard Allah and we heard His Messenger. And our soul was, that meaning was imprinted upon us. And that is the fitrah upon which every human being is born. And those who embrace Islam, when you're inviting them to Allah, that's the meaning that you're stirring in them. That is the meaning that resonates when the truth reaches the human soul and knocks at the ears of the human heart, because it has already experienced that. When we come to these gatherings and we do da'wah and khutbah to the people of Iman, what's being stirred in them is their Iman. However, with the non-Muslims, what's being stirred in them is the fitrah. And all of them have it. And I can testify to you, having been someone who was born with the fitrah, the Prophet ﷺ informed us of that, we're sure of that with yaqeen. There's no, every child is born upon the fitrah, and then his two parents make him a Jew, or make him a Christian, or make him a Magian, as in the famous hadith. I was born with that. And I remember the pure feelings of childhood. And the good feelings of childhood prior to my Islam, prior to even knowing what Islam was. And then, when I reached my adolescence, and I embraced Islam by Allah's permission in 1989. And I lived in an area called Berkeley, California, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And that was in the 1980s that I was in high school there, and junior high. And naturally, as a young man, in an extremely, as they say, liberal environment, an environment where there's full freedom of choice, and freedom of choice is a lie. Wallahi, the freedom of choice that the disbelievers and the enemies of Allah, and the heedless among the Muslimin try to sell you, it's a lie. And it's a manner of being imprisoned and enslaved by your desires and the shaitan, and a way of killing your fitrah. And I experienced that process. And I remember as a young man of like 15 or 16 years old, and we would literally say this, because they taught us something in psychology, you know, people are trying to reach zero tension, and that's reached by death. We were trying to live a life in order to die. And they actually say that. Imagine a young man or woman that we should call them in Arabic a fatah or fityan. Fatah or fatah. Yani a noble person. If we were to translate that term, we'd call it chivalry. That person should be a knight. The woman should be a lady. Should be in the prime of their youth, seeking Allah's pleasure instead, literally. And this is what will happen to your children if you set them loose with the internet and then set them loose with media, literally seeking to die young. And they'll say it. It's a decided ideology with them. They'll say, live fast and die young and have a pretty corpse. And literally that's how we are trying to live. Why? Because that fitrah that Allah gave us, it was born into an environment that corrupted it. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said would happen. And that's what Imam al-Ghazali said would happen, and that can even happen to a Muslim. The child starts out like a raw gem. You can engrave in it anything you want. It can be a gem that has Allah and Muhammad engraved in it from birth. It can be a gem, and that's the sunnah is what does that. It could be a gem that has La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam engraved in it from birth. And that's what we teach the child through saying the adhan at birth. Or it can be a gem that comes into this world and immediately it's thrown into a sewer. And it's left in the street and cars drive over it and scrape it up and smash it. And that's what happens to the human heart when it's placed in an environment that's not an environment of tarbiyah. So I remember that occurring, and I remember being a young man of like 15 years old and looking around and thinking that there's something ugly about my life and something wrong. However, I didn't know what it was. I knew that I didn't feel right, and I didn't feel how I had felt as a child when I still had those feelings of purity, but I didn't know what was wrong. And I didn't know what the method of renewal and revival, or really you could say resurrection of my humanity was. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it was His will that Allah just make reach my eyes and ears the story of a man called Malcolm X. Al-Hajj Malik al-Shahbaz, rahimahullah, who was a man who similarly was reduced almost to like the state of being like a predatory beast and a criminal, and imprisoned and entered the prison and learned about a false version of Islam, but at least it taught him the name and taught him that there was Mecca where he eventually made Hajj and embraced Islam, and that was the first I heard about Islam. And again, the fitrah, it inclines to the truth. That immediately impacted me, and it gave me, in addition to a respect for Islam, a respect and a desire to meet the Muslims. So I met some of them, and it was Allah's will that very quickly, and due to some other changes that I won't mention, Allah brought me into Islam. And that was on, what was it, May 14th, 1989. That was my junior year of high school, I did that. So after that, Allah enabled me to be involved at a mosque that was very active in da'wah. And also, they had a bookstore, alhamdulillah. And we got a hold of a translation of the Revival of the Religious Sciences that was translated in Pakistan. And when I read that book, and I felt when I was reading that, when I was purchasing that book, I felt like a magnetism. I felt like something was pulling my soul towards the works of Imam al-Ghazali. And in that, he described the learned men of the hereafter. That's when you read the Revival of the Religious Sciences, and that's a book we should constantly read. Some of the authors, scholars of our tradition said, if someone doesn't read Ihya, ma fihi haya. Someone doesn't read the Revival, he has no life, he's lifeless. So in the first volume, he describes the virtue of knowledge and what true knowledge is, and how are the learned men of the hereafter. So I thought to myself, reading that, I want to find a group of people like this and worship Allah with them. And then it happened that there were callers to Allah, and there are people of great favor upon us. People like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf Hansen, people like the Sheikh who's not so well known, the Sheikh Abdullah Al-Qadi, and Imam Zayd Shakir, the Sheikh that's not very well known at all, Sheikh Muhammad Sharif. They began talking about, again, seeking knowledge, but not the knowledge of degrees and the knowledge of immense institutions, and there's good in that. However, the knowledge that is connected to these chains that we mentioned, the knowledge that one takes from those who saw Allah's Messenger. And when we heard them describe that, I said to myself, that is what Imam Ghazali was describing in Ihya, and that's what I hope to do. So Allah willed that we travel to Syria and benefit from the ulama there, and that a Sheikh was also a person of great fadl over us, that he sent us to the city of Tarim. His name is Sheikh Nuh Hamim Keller. Allah preserve all of them and all of the ulama of Islam and benefit us by them. So he sent us in 1997. I embraced Islam in 89. In 1997 in the summer, around July, to Tarim, to the city of Tarim. And we reached Tarim, and the city of Tarim, and as many of you know, the area of Hadramaut is one of the primary areas, or the primary area in the city of Tarim in specific, where the ulama and the pious, who had played a great role in spreading Islam in this region, dwelled. And it's a place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to be a place of security and a sanctuary for a very large amount of the scholars of the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we reached Tarim in the night. And I remember we went to sleep, and they showed us hospitality we didn't deserve. We had studied knowledge, hadn't even begun studying knowledge. We studied for 9 months, Arabic primarily, and a little bit of Tajweed and Quran. And the first night they had us sleep on the roof with Habib Omar and his brother, Habib Ali Mashhour, the Mufti of Tarim. And the next morning we went down into the house because the sun, you can't sleep in the morning in the hot Hadramaut sun. And we slept in like the main room of Habib Mashhour's house. And we woke up late, and the Habaib were already sitting for breakfast. Habib Ali Mashhour was there, Habib Omar, and they were gentle with us. They brought us to the front of the gathering. And I remember looking around at the little kids. And this is a meaning that I hadn't learned at that point in all of the years of my Islam, in the 8 years of my Islam. That meaning I was yet to be taught. I remember looking around at the little kids, I think maybe some of the kids of Habib Mashhour, Habib Omar's nephews, and I said to myself, these are the people I've been sending salawat on in all of my prayers up to this point. And Allah cast into my heart their love, alhamdulillah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us truth in that and good service to them and accept. And also a meaning that we saw is love of the mashayikh. I used to read the hadith of the companions, and again, and this is another one of the lies that the modern secular society tries to teach, and its basis is in shaitan's madhab. And they try to act like everyone is the same. And sure, we're of the same origin, but what they mean by that is a denial of the khususiyat that Allah gives. A denial of divine election, which is a belittlement of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has magnified. And Allah says, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَذِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. That and those who magnify the symbols of Allah's religion, that is from the God-fearingness of what? Not just God-fearingness, the God-fearingness of hearts. That's from the essence of Tawheed, is to place one's emotion behind Allah's command. So you love what you love because Allah told you to. Not because you want to, but because Allah told you. Not because you think they're deserving, because Allah made them deserving. And that meaning, again, by bad tarbiyah, by not being exposed to prophetic teaching, which is the revelation through chain of transmission, that my soul had been warped in that way as well. So when I would read the hadith, the companions would almost fight over the water of Allah's Messenger after he made wudu. As a Westerner, that's very unusual. And I'll admit that. That was unusual to me. And for me, Islam was like, submit, and if your opinion is that, alhamdulillah, if not, throw your opinion against the wall. I never asked anyone about it. But when I saw the ulama, particularly those of Ahlul Bayt and their lovers, on those first days in the bihud, the meaning was immediately clear. That's a meaning of just incredible love. That's a meaning of incredible love. And Urwa bin Mas'ud described that meaning during the time of Hudaybiyah. He said that if he spit, they would catch it. If he made wudu, they would almost fight over the rest, the remnants of his wudu. They wouldn't look at him straight out of adab. And he said, I went to the kings of Persia and Rome, and I've never seen anyone who shows reverence for anyone like the companions show reverence for Muhammad. So that is the sunnah. That is the sunnah. And what is the way? This false egalitarianism. And no one came and said, everyone is made of dirt before the Prophet Muhammad. No one came and said that the Arab is not better than the non-Arab, and the black is not better than the white, or the white is not better than black before the Prophet Muhammad. However, that doesn't mean that we deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's election, because that's denying Allah's favor, and that is the mistake the shaitan made. Because he said, he wouldn't prostrate. You created him from dirt, and you created him from me from fire. What was the angelic method? Was to prostrate. And the angels, they're some of the imams of Tawheed and the imams of Ta and the imams of Sunnah. So if someone comes and tells you, we're man and they're man, you just take the book and the Sunnah and deny the ulama and reject what your ancestors have been on for centuries, that's an Iblisi madhab. Because that's a madhab that denies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's election, rather than acknowledging it and rather than magnifying that which Allah magnified, because we're magnifying Allah and because we have taqwa of hearts. So that was something that was, again, part of that revival that occurs at the hands of those who narrate knowledge through chains of transmission, who have a permission and a connection to teach Allah's revelation. So then we spent about 50 days with them during that time. And I remember distinctly that during those days and nights, I remember that meaning, that fitrah that I felt when I was a child, before it was dirty by this modern, material, hedonistic age. I remember that, feeling that again for the first time. And that was from 1989 to 97, like 8 years into Islam, but more importantly, spending about 40 or 50 days with people that have a permission to, again, give that tarbiyah and give that tazkiyah that the Prophet ﷺ brought, that heals the human soul. And that's what the human soul needs. And that is what will revive it, will quicken the human soul so that it can come closer to experiencing that which it thirsts for and that which it is seeking. Because all of our souls with rare exception, and there are exceptions, there are people who are reared, families like the Jailani family, families like members of the Al-Alawi family, they're reared into sainthood. They have a fitrah that's prepared, they have good company and knowledge, and someone that will help them habituate good practice, and they just grow up in a state of wilayah. And that can happen. And you'll find if you study your history, there were people who were like that in these regions because of the tarbiyah they had. Most of us don't have that. So what we need is something that brings us home. Our homeland is not this material age. Our homeland, in a sense, is not this body. But our homeland is to be in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the sweetness of life. And that is the good life to which Allah and His Messenger called us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who gives life to the land after it is dead. And He is the one who can give life, and I'll testify to this. Having felt the soul be killed, or being killed, being strangled almost to the point of death. Feeling it being revived and being resuscitated, that is what this message brings, and that is the blessing that Allah gave you, the Ummah of Muhammad. Allahumma salli wa sallam wa barak alayhi wa alihi. That is a blessing in a specific way that Allah gave you, the people of this region. The people of this area of Southeast Asia, Allah gave you that blessing centuries ago and preserved it. So don't believe their lies. I come from California, the land of Hollywood, and I can tell you it's a lie. It's a bold-faced lie, and it's from the shaitanic inspiration. The devils of mankind and jinnkind inspire one another, and it's directed full force at your children. So just as they have multimedia corruption, we have to have multi-level or multi-dimensional tarbiyah. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ brought. His book brings you, the book he brought you will give tarbiyah to the human soul and the heart and the aql. The sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ will give tarbiyah to the soul and the heart and the aql, will give tarbiyah to all of your limbs. If you give them this medicine, you take it from the likes of Sheikh Afeef, who took it from a chain, so it has a permission, it has a connection, it has an understanding that it holds, it has a light. It's like a vessel of light that is carrying to you a fresh water that they can get to drink. If you take these are the medicines that will heal the human soul. The Prophet ﷺ, he taught us to teach our children, and it's a shame if we exchange that for the teachings of the kuffar, the teachings of Rasulullah ﷺ. He said, Ya ghulam, sammi Allahi ta'ala, wa kul bi yaminik, wa kul mimma yalik. Oh boy, mention the name of Allah ta'ala. He's teaching the child, when the human nafs, the human soul has anger and desire. And it has aql, it has reason, and it has a capacity to balance these. Good character and tazkiyah lies in the human soul, the aql that's informed by the revelation, governing the desire and the anger and balancing them. So as soon as the child, this pure member of the family of Adam, that also has a disposition that's from the earth, from teen, that's similar to animals, it has appetites. As soon as a child is cognizant, the prophetic teaching teaches the child that its consumption is not wanton. Its consumption is governed by the light of dhikr. Sammillahi ta'ala. So the human soul now, it's learning already I don't just go about consuming and acquiring and material in this world how I want. I have to do so connected to Allah. And that's a purification. And that's a refinement of the human character. And that just comes by being a believer of the Ummah Muhammad and giving your children tarbiyah. And eat with your right hand. Similarly, even the movement movements of the believer, everything is beneath the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is an expression of love for Allah. And because we're following Allah's messenger. Say if you love Allah, follow me, Allah will love you and forgive you your sins. So he's following Allah just in the most basic human appetite. When the first appetite a child has, that's eating. Eat with your right hand, and then eat what? Eat with what's right in front of you. Again, teaching a lesson about acquisition. That you don't take something that is not yours. That trains our children not to steal. That trains our children to respect the rights of others and the property of others. To prefer others over oneself even when they have a desire. And that refines the human soul. And that is what you, the Ummah of Muhammad, have to present to the world. Weapons of mass destruction aren't anything to compete about. We were sent here for imara. The khilafah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an imara, it's a development of the surface of the earth. When Seth received that khilafah from Adam, he said, take it with imara to taqwa. Take it and develop it in taqwa. That is why you and I are here. Someone who's competing at their ability to demolish shouldn't be our example. We can take some of what they have and use it, but we have to use it following Muhammad. If not, we would have forsaken our khilafah. So if we imitate them, despite their multimedia, despite their materialism, despite their science, and we leave what Muhammad brought, we're turning our back on the khilafah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're turning our back on the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah taught us that if someone turns away from the dhikr, that he will live ma'ishatan dhanka. That he will live a wretched life, and that's what we can expect the Ummah of Muhammad when we turn away from the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless Sheikh Afeefuddin in these lessons, and bless you when you're taking, and grant you openings in receiving from that chain of transmission the tarbiyah of Muhammad, and that Allah, through that, make your hearts thrive, and your souls and your secrets, and those of your children and your loved ones, and of the people of Malaysia and of the Muslims. And that Allah make each of you keys which unlock good and locks which prevent evil. And that Allah benefit us to benefit from a long life in afiyah of Sheikh Afeefuddin. And that Allah bless this mosque and those who are maintaining it and those who frequent it. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. And forgive us. We spoke with the permission and request of Sheikh Afeefuddin and the Habaib. Wa afwan minkum. And I'm going to excuse myself because I have another appointment to make. And it's been a real blessing. And thank you so much for us being here. Wa afwan minkum.
Interesting subject. Can we repeat that about the fiqh, we've been, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us Muslimin from generations. So when someone struggles to reach the door of Islam, we find the gemstone, what he received, to take it out is really something very interesting. It's like someone who inherits from his father the wealth, and someone who made the wealth by himself. There's a difference. The first one, he will spend it. The second one, he will make it big and struggle all the time to build his empire. Alhamdulillah. So we are searching of our iman. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. And it's not saying it's a real struggle for us to reach to that, and we really need Allah's barakah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah we'll be blessed with all of that. Tonight we are going to read 35th discourse, inshallah. Looks like Ahli Dawud is not around. Dr. Rafiq is around. 35th. Okay? Can read the journal.
The Sheikh, may Allah be exalted, be well pleased with him, said, "Woe unto you, O arrogant ones! Your acts of worship, ibadah, do not enter the earth, they only ascend to heaven. As Allah Almighty and glorious is He has said, to Him good words ascend, and the righteous deed He does exalt." 35:10. Our Lord Almighty and glorious is He, has mounted the throne and encompassed the kingdom. His knowledge is comprehensive of all things. He is the author of 7 verses, ayah in the Quran to this effect. I cannot erase them for the sake of your ignorance and stupidity. However much you terrify me with your sword or excite my desire for your money, I fear only Allah Almighty and glorious is He, and of none but Him am I afraid. On Him I pin my hope, and to none but Him do I look in hope. I worship Him, and I worship none but Him. I work for His sake, and I do not work for the sake of any but Him. My sustenance is with Him, and in His hand everything belongs to Him. The slave, abd, and all he possesses belong to his master. He mentioned that as many as 500 souls had come to Islam at his hand, and that more than 20,000 had repented. And he said, "This is among the blessings, barakah of Prophet Muhammad. Allah bless him and give him peace, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah is the knower of the unseen, alimul ghaib, and He reveals His secret to no one except to every messenger who He has chosen." And it's 72, 26, 27. The unseen in His presence, so draw near to Him and you see Him and see what is in His presence. Leave your family, your property, your town, your wife, and your children, and move away from them with your heart. Leave everything and travel to His door. When you arrive at His door, you must pay no attention to His attendants, His dominion, and His kingdom. If they offer you a meal, you must not eat it. If they install you in a chamber, you must not make yourself at home in it. If they offer you a wife, you must not marry her. You must accept none of these things until you meet Him, just as you are, in your ordinary clothes, your weariness, the dust of your journey, and your disheveled state. Then it will be He who transforms you, gives you food and drink, dispels your loneliness, comforts you, refreshes your weariness, and calms your fear. In His nearness, you will have your satisfaction, and in beholding Him, you will have your food and drink and clothing. What is the meaning of patronage, tawalli, of creatures? It is making them the object of one's fear and hope, relying on them and putting one's trust in them. This is the meaning of the patronage of creatures.
In brief, this discourse talking about God's fearing in different ways. Al-Khawf, Khashya, fear Allah, Taqwa. God's fearing is a word that means you think about Jahannam and the punish of Jahannam and the suffering of Jahannam. Not that the meaning. Al-Arifun Billah, Ahlul Salihin, pious. They said, if someone being, Na'udhu Billah, thrown into the hellfire, that means he being kept away forever from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is a punishment. If someone who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept him away from him in the time which supposed for him to be near to him, and the veils to be clear in order for him to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the eyes of his head, that opportunity won't come to him at that time, and he will be kept away. For that, Sayyidina Abu Sulaiman al-Darani, Abu Sulaiman al-Darani, he has two beautiful sayings. He's min al-awliya al-akabir, big waliyullah, salihin, alim. He said, Ya Allah, I love you too much. Ya Allah, I love you too much. Ya Allah, I love you too much. And if you throw me in Jahannam, I will tell the people of Jahannam, I love Allah. And he said in the other hand, when they ask him, what is the things which we have to keep in our hearts to make us min ahl al-taqwa, min al-muttaqeen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to say, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ittaqullah. Taqwa Allah, fear Allah, piety. He said the meaning of that is that Allah, when He looked to your heart, you should not find in your heart the love of dunya and the love of akhirah as well. You should find only the love of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because He created this heart for Him. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ except the one who comes to Allah with a pure heart. He didn't say go to Akhirah with a pure heart, or reach to Akhirah with a pure heart, or he entered Jannah with a pure heart. He said, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهِ, reach to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with pure heart. You see, when you submit your application to work somewhere, then you have to, there'll be a process from this department to this department to this till, and those people, you know, they go and say, okay, this paper is missing, this one is missing, you have to bring one more thing. They will always find difficulties or obstacles in your way, till they clear everything for you, and then it will reach to the general manager or to the chairman, and it's up to him to decide to accept you or not. Correct? But if you have the link, straight away you go that this, no need to cross all this, straight to chairman, the general manager. You give application, he said, it's okay, don't worry. You accept it. He won't look to anything. He will look to you only. And if you came with someone who is very near to him, that also will be, you know, I will give you better position. We reach to Allah in the same way, if we have the real understanding of God's fear, al-khashya min Allah, taqwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu ittaqullah. يعني they are mu'mineen already, believers. But he said, ittaqullah. There is one ayah in the Holy Quran. It was one of the beloved verses to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for him. And he used to recite it all the time. Bismillah ar-Rahman, that is in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 281. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. And have fear of the day when you shall return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. And every human being shall be fully repaid for whatever he has done, and none shall be wronged. Taqwa yawman, fear a day when you're going to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We came, when he said return, we are in this life. He sent us to this life. And just now Sheikh Abdul Karim mentioned about the ayah when all the humans in alam al-arwah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked them, am I not your Lord? Al-Bala. Of course, Ya Allah. They said Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, because he has very pure heart and he can see through his heart what we cannot see through our eyes. Yani he can see through his basira. Allah said, they call this one the eyes of the sight of your heart, basira, and the sight of your eyes we call basar. The basar, basira. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu ardah, when they asked him one day, Ya Ali, this ayah, do you remember that day? Do you remember that day when Allah said to Alam al-Arwah? He said, yes, by Allah, I remember that day. And I remember who was in my right and who was in my left also. For us, how come? Yeah, because sometimes if you have a feeling, a true feeling, because you have a good connection that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with khushu' and your heart pure, you can imagine something like the mother and son. She is truly love her son, and if he is anywhere in the world, and if he felt sick, we know many incidents. She will call and say, "Are you okay? Are you not? I feel something." And he say he is sick or he is not. There's something happening. That is the mother love to her son. How about the believer love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah's love to them subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah loves somebody, you know what is going to happen to him? I just want to tell you something. It's very important. If Allah loves you, you think what He's going to do? He will open the doors of this life for you. Take whatever you want. No, not that one. He will make this life too small that you won't think of it at all. It will become too small compared. If you have Allah's love, what is the meaning of this life? Is it? What's the meaning of it? And if Allah bless you with the barakah, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً, He bless you with everything. What? And compare. He said, Sayyidina Rasulullah, he said the dunya, this life, and the enjoyment and the entertainment of this life, compared to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for the pious people in Jannah, is like when you put your finger in the sea, and you take out your finger, the remaining water, that is the dunya, what the enjoyment of dunya, and the sea is what Allah prepared for us now. In fact, he said the needle, not even your finger. But that needs someone who really Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves him too much. At-taqwa is a wasiyah In Salat, in Jum'ah, Khutbah al-Jum'ah, the arkan of khutbah, Alhamdulillah, والصلاة على رسول الله is one, is simple. And then والوصية بالتقوى. أوصيكم بتقوى الله يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Always, in all madhabs, have to be so. And then the dua. These are the 4 wajibat and this thing for khutbah, any khutbah Jum'ah. So, taqwa is a concern of all. Because Allah says, Ya ladina amanu, ittaqu Allah. Your goal, the final destination is taqwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They asked, Sayyidina Ali one day asked Ubay ibn Ka'b, Sayyidina Umar, sorry, radiallahu anhu. He asked Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b. Ubay ibn Ka'b, one of those who they recite the Quran, Ahlul Quran, specialist. So he said to him, what is at-taqwa, Ya Ubay? Umar, Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen. He said, what is at-taqwa? He said, Ya Umar, in simple, at-taqwa is mean when you walk in a land and there is what we call some thorns or whatever, you know, in your way, what you are going to do? He said, I will walk carefully and then I will elevate my cloth little so that I can see and nothing will happen. No, very careful. He says this is at-taqwa. That's the meaning of at-taqwa. Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu anhu, they have asked him, what is at-taqwa? He said, at-taqwa, he said, at-taqwa, al-khawf min al-jaleel, fear Allah. Wal-amalu bit-tanzeel, and your deeds have to match the Holy Quran. Work to it. وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادِ لِيَوْمِ الرَّحِيلِ, and to be ready for the departure day. These 3 things. If each of us have reached to that level, that is at-taqwa. But you know what is the biggest enemy in your way? Taqwa, what is going to happen? You don't think if you want to go through your path, ihdina siratal, that will be easy. Oh, there will be so much of problems. Your own soul, Ammara bis-su, Al-Shaytan, he will try his best to keep you away. Just now, when the doctor was reading, Sayyidina Sheikh Abdul Qadir, he said in his saying, you have to be, you know, nothing to take. If you reach to his door already, don't accept anything from his servants, because your aim is Allah only. If they offer you anything, don't take. You have one aim, one destination. If someone says, come, I take you, say, no, I don't. If someone, I offer you, I don't want. You are coming to him because he invites you, so he's going to arrange for you all the protocol. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He himself, Sheikh Abdul Qadir, but you know what happened in his trip, in his journey to Allah? In one of his, he said, he was so hungry that he wants food. Then he took, he was, you know, eating, he found leaves, you know, in the desert, leaves. He wants to eat the leaves, the bitter taste. How they said this leaves become like chicken. He threw it from his hand. Straight away. He said, no, this is not what I want. I don't want to be someone who can tell this thing turned to me to be a chicken and then I will say, oh, I am now. No, I want only Allah. They said, also there's a saying that in his journey, Al-Khidr alayhi salam said, would you like me to accompany you? Yani just be with you in your journey to help you. He said, no, I don't want to be engaged with anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is all messengers by Allah to find out whether you are genuine in your claim or not. There'll be so much things. Maybe the door of dunya will open, or the door of test will open. Depend, hardships. And when Allah said, Inna ma'al usri yusra, Inna ma'al usri, that means there will be hardship. But who's the one who will ease the hardships? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is something like Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz radiyallahu anhu wa arda. They call him the 5th Khalifa. Before he became Khalifa, he is a prince. His uncle, his cousins, 2 cousins, all of them Khalifas. Abdul Malik bin Marwan, the first one who made the golden coin in the history, Abdul Malik bin Marwan, that is his uncle. He is Abdul Aziz, Umar bin Abdul Aziz bin Marwan. That is his uncle. Then Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik, his cousin. And he married his wife, Fatima bint Abdul Malik. She is his cousin. She is the daughter of his uncle, who is the Khalifa. He used to be prince before. Sayyidina Umar bin Abdul Aziz. When they buy for him, they bring to him the silk, the softest silk you imagine. Very soft, very nice. He said, this fabric is nice, but I think it's a bit thick. Not that soft enough. When he became Khalifa, you know what happened? He used to wear very thick clothes, like goonie almost. And they say, what is this? He says, it's too soft. His eye, his desire for this life being changed, but who changed it for him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will make you feel this dunya is nothing now. If you want me, only me. His auntie came to him once. She said, I am descendant of Khalifas, all my family kings. My brother is a king, my cousin is a king, my nephew is, all kings. And I don't have enough money. Please give me extra. He said, you have your, what is it supposed to take? He said, no, I need more. Give me from Baitul Aman. You are the Sultan, you are the king. He said, okay, I will give you. He was blind that day. He brought few coins, put in fire till it became red color, and put in a plate and gave it to her. He said, take whatever you want. When she put her hand, she, of course, she said, are you crazy? You are? He said, you want me to give you from the thing which I trusted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's unfair. And then, if you cannot stand the fire of dunya, how can you stand the Jahannam? This is understanding. See, they up to reach when someone come to visit him, he said, I have something personal to tell you. He said, wait a minute. We will go to the lampu, those days lampu, you will off this one, I will on different one. He said, what is it? He said, this is belong to the government, but this belongs to me. Now, since it belongs to me, the subject, I have to on mine. Subhanallah, this is khashyatillah. Ajib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Quran, when Allah described السماء والأرض, the heaven, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل رأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. If this Quran be revealed, be understood by the mountain, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let the mountain understand the meaning of the Holy Quran, which is Kalamullah. If the Quran revealed on that mountain, the mountain will be melted, cracked, become like dust. Min khashyatillah, because of what's fairy. He said, and this is for the human beings to understand, for the people to know the meaning of khashya. Taqwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyidul Atqiya, the chief of Ahl al-Taqwa, Sayyidina Rasulullah. His Sahaba, Ahl al-Bayt, al-Salihin, al-Awliya, al-Arifin, al-Muttaqin. That is all their lives, subhanAllah. And because of that, Allah will open for them, will open in their hearts so much. He said, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمْكُمُ اللَّهُ. With taqwa, Allah will teach you so much things. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first thing you're going to get from him, because of taqwa, contentment, riba. Riba, alhamdulillah. It's not easy for you to say alhamdulillah from your real heart in the time of difficulties. Say alhamdulillah is not that easy. Because when things happen, you are down. And then you say alhamdulillah. But when straight away the things happen, you say alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Oh. They said, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the angels to take the ruh of the boy of one of his servants, they will ask the angels. They came with the ruh. They took. The boy died. The son or the daughter. Then he will ask them, what my servant said when he took his boy from him. What he said? He said, Hamadaka wastarja. He said, Alhamdulillah, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He will say, subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Rasulullah said, he will build for him a house in Jannah, and he called it Baitul Hamd, the house of thanksgiving. To whom? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, an understanding for taqwa and khashya. This is something different. For now, for our life, on this level, the life we are having now, we want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our khashya at least to not to find us in a place which He forbidden. Yani do not hide in a place to commit a sin and forget Allah is watching. This will become what? Say they forgot us, and we also going to forget them that day. كَمَا نَسِيتُ لِقَاءَ. You forgot this day? But there is a people, subhanAllah, see the difference. This part Allah don't want to see them, don't want them to be near, don't want them, just put them in Jannah, khalas. But there is a people, subhanAllah, they will come straight from grave to Jannah with no judgment or nothing. Direct. Remember the chairman is now? The angels of Allah, even they don't know what they have done. Ya Allah, why? This one they took this highway straight from grave to Jannah. They don't know what's happening, they don't know all hisab. He will say they have worshipped me secretly with ikhlas. So I am going today also to make them enter to Jannah secretly. SubhanAllah. And there are many of them. Ibad al-Salihin, SubhanAllah. Straight away. Close the door, close this thing, put cotton in the hole of the, the padlock, the lock of the thing, to hide from the people. But how to hide from them, subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's why Allah said the highest level of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the highest level in this religion, and in ihsan. In ihsan is to worship Allah as look at you're watching Him, or you have the feelings that He's watching you. SubhanAllah. So in this case, that is the level of Al-Ihsan. Al-Ihsan is the level for all those Ahlul Taqwa. That is there how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described them. And there are so much of things Allah can't please you with because of your taqwa. He will make the angels whom they have written your, if Allah forgives you, now, inshallah, even the books, the angels, whom they have written, the sins which you have committed, and He forgives it. Allah wants to forgive the sins, and will be erased, and the book will be gone. Still the angels maybe remember it, but Allah will make this angel also forget about it. He said, Fulan, he committed, Ya Allah, he never committed any sins. He used to be in the mosque, and he used to be a good man, and he used to be, and you know yourself better. But that is Allah's gift to all of us, subhanahu wa ta'ala, for those who they, inshallah, we pray with His generosity to include us with this level and to be with Ahl al-Taqwa wal-Khashiyah, inshallah. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to take from this life the things is going to, number one, please us with, number two, with barakah, full of blessing. Never mind how much, whether it's too much or less, the most important, the rida, contentment, inshallah, satisfaction with His ni'mah, alhamdulillah. Little, alhamdulillah, more, alhamdulillah. And we pray to Allah that He will want to test us in this life as He has tested those before us, because the level of taqwa and khashya is different. He say, Ya Allah, we never come to you with our deeds. Our deeds is useless because there is no spirit. But we want to reach you, to meet you, and you are going to ask us, but you are going to ask us through your name Al-Kareem, the generous one, Ar-Rahim, the merciful, Al-Ghafur, the forgiving, inshallah. That's what we know, and that is our hope. Ya Allah, we ask you to help us to purify our hearts. Do not let this life enter to our heart at all. Bless us to have you only in our heart. This dunya, and what is in dunya, to be in our hand. As we took it from someone, we're going to hand it over to someone else. But our heart, this is our iman, we don't want to give away our iman at all. That is the biggest punishment. Bless us, Ya Allah, to be in Jannah in order to be near to you. Because you have promised that in Jannah they are the one who are near to you. And to be away from the hellfire, because we don't want to be away from you, Ya Allah. Bless our families, our children, our brothers and sisters with taqwa and hidayah. Guide them to the straight path and make them to understand the right and wrong. To identify between the right and wrong through their taqwa, inshallah. Bless us with shukr, thankful, and bless us with sabr in the time of test, inshallah. Bless us to like to go to the places which you like us to be, which is the masajid, which are the classes, the lessons which are going to make us remember you and to remember your beloved Prophet Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Bless us to be away from all the places which you forbidden us to be. Bless us to be obedience, fully obedience to you, full love to your book, the Holy Quran. Make the meanings of the Holy Quran enter deeply into our hearts, so we will understand the meaning of khashiyah and taqwa and tawaqq, inshallah. Bless us, Ya Allah, to remember that we are temporary in this life, and we are going to be permanently near to you in the next life. Bless us that when we enter to our prayers, we feel that this way is a holding room only before meeting you, Ya Allah. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات، المؤمنين والمؤمنات، الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم ارحمنا فإنك بنا راحم، ولا تعذبنا فإنك علينا قادر، واطلب بنا بأطوائك لطيف، لطفك الخفي يا لطيف يا عليم يا خبير يا الله. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولأزواجنا وذرياتنا وللمسلمين والمسلمات المؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات وغافر الذنوب والخطيئات يا أرحم الراحمين يا أرحم الراحمين. اجعلنا من عبادك المتقين، اجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين. اغفر ذنوبنا وشافي مرضانا وعافي مبتلانا، فرج اللهم هم المهمومين واقض الدين عن المدينين، وشافي مرضانا وعافي مبتلانا، وسلم احياءنا وارحم امواتنا واموات المسلمين برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين. اغفر اللهم للجماعه الحاضرين والحاضرات، ولمن أنشأ هذا المسجد ومن كان وعمل فيه لله من خير وإحسان برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وأوصل اللهم ثواب الفاتحة حضرة النبي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلى أمواتنا وأموات المسلمين أجمعين بسر الفاتحة. وإلى حضرة النبي المصطفى سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلى روح المرحوم حاجه خديجة بنت محمد الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق ومن شر الفاسد ومن شر الحاسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك المصير ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. تقبل الله